So welcome, Nate. Thank you so much for taking time to do this testimonial here with me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so, I wanted to start this out by just giving you a little bit of a brag about your exemplary way of getting through the program and the way you entered the program, the way you moved through the program. I just, really commend you for the fact that you were really diligent with applying the information and getting through the information and showing up and suiting up, so to speak. And so I really wanted to get this interview with you specifically because I really saw you as that, as kind of a shining star student. And I noticed that as a result, that you really got some big changes, you got some big effects. So,
I did, and I was looking for big changes as well.
You what?
I had a vested interest.
Aw.
It was great.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit, I know you started your nonprofit that had been, forming in your mind for some time. You had some shifts on a personal level with your health.
Yeah, so when I came into the program, I was well into what I'll just call a transformation. And it was a shift at a spiritual level, and that kind of sent it kind of threw my life out of balance for a while until I could step into more of an alignment with who I was becoming, which it just turned out that the course, that was the theme of the course, like step into who you're becoming, which is exactly how it needed to happen right at that moment. And so as a result of this, this inner shift going on inside of me, there were certain things that got thrown to the wayside. One of them being my personal health and like acknowledging my own well-being. So the health coaching aspects of the course really intrigued me.
Well, Nathan, before we get into that, can I pause you briefly? I'm curious to dive into your spiritual experience, if you wouldn't mind opening up a little bit about that. Like, what was going on for you?
So I was fortunate enough in graduate school to essentially have a summer off, and I had been getting into a yoga practice prior to that. Pretty intense. I was living alone. I was fairly isolated. I go weeks at a time without even talking to other people. And I was reading a lot of like the spiritual texts at that time, the Tao Te Ching and others. And
what kind of yoga were you doing?
I was doing hot yoga.
Hot yoga, okay.
And as you learn in the Ayurveda program, that's not everyone, especially someone who's more driven or pitta oriented, needs that, but that's naturally where I was gravitating. And one day I always had my notebook with me just because I fancy myself a writer. So anytime I had a thought I felt was profound, I'd want to get it down, make sure I had it saved. So I'd always have this journal with me. And one day I was taking a walk and I sat down on this park bench overlooking the mountains, and all of a sudden, it felt like there was energy in my body, really in a way I'd never felt before. And it kind of locked me in place, and I wrote this poem. And then when I was done with the poem, I entered into a state of consciousness that you could call like a unity experience or a samadhi type experience. And then because I was isolated, I was able to stay there for a while.
Would you mind describing that experience as best as you can? I'm sure it's difficult to put it into words, but if you could try for us.
Yeah, it was there's some sort of longing inside of each and every one of us that wants to know. Like, maybe not everyone pursues that, but I think for some of us, there's a longing that just needs to know the truth. And for me, in that experience, whatever it was that I didn't quite grasp about life, the whole situation, it made sense to me in that moment, and realization was so profound that it took months to keep integrating that insight. And it's like the movie behind the, or like, yeah, the movie behind my eyes became more real to me than what was going on in the world outside of me. It was like I was getting all these hits of these truth or revelation that was coming to me, and I was just sitting back, almost observing these things, and essentially just going through the motions of life on the material planes, trying to go with the flow of things. And then so that lasted for quite a while. It was basically what Eckhart Tolle does a good job describing having that experience. And then you just can sit on a park bench and look like the village idiot a tree, because it's like the first time you've seen a tree as like an actual tree. So I think it was powerful, but there was still seeds inside of me that they had to play themselves out. And
Nate, can I interrupt you briefly? You mentioned you attempted to assimilate that over months. What kinds of things did you do?
For me, it was reading. I think at first the experience was so absorbing that I was just in it. I was just experiencing it, I guess. And then I started school up again after that summer, and the stress was so challenging. It was my last semester. I had a thesis to defend. I was taking coursework, and then I started having like Kundalini type experiences going on where I was starting to process emotion too. Like the deep healing was starting to take place, and like I'd feel almost like a wire uncoiling in me, and my head would kind of start spinning. And fortunately, I'd heard the word Kundalini before, and I had heard that it was like a coiled snake. So in my mind, that's just where it went. Like, okay, this is a thing that's possible in the human experience. It's not common, but it's happening. I don't know if it was a full blown Kundalini awakening or a blown gasket, but that was happening.
And what were you studying in school at the time?
Soil and water chemistry.
And so you went back to finish your thesis on that specific topic?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had all sorts of courses I was taking at the time, pretty high level chemistry stuff.
And how did the books that you were reading serve you? What were the results of the different things that you tried to assimilate?
Well, I wasn't fully aware that this was part of the human experience, so I needed to ensure that I wasn't like a crazy person or I hadn't lost my mind. Like it felt good, and I had a couple like thin threads of references keeping me grounded, tethered to reality. But at a certain point, even that started to erode.
What were the threads keeping you to reality?
Just hearing about Eckhart Tolle's experience, and then knowing that Kundalini was a thing.
Okay.
Uh,
So it was more about the mind then, it sounds like more knowing that you weren't alone, like somebody else has been there, somebody else has gone through this.
It's like an experiential terrain that very few people have knowledge of, or it's so hard to articulate. You say it's ineffable that someone, you could have this exact same experience and people would describe it totally different ways. So I was able to at least attach to something that seemed relevant to my personal experience, and that was enough for me to realize, like, I think I'm gonna be okay. But then, like, I made it through school, but there was my spirit, my more subtle body, knew it didn't want to be there, and I think there was some sort of tug going on between me having to finish school, because I would have been online for a lot of money if I didn't, just paying back my grants and things, and what my spirit actually wanted, which was just probably just stay in that state for as long as possible. So that started to create some sort of riff, and that's when like how I started handling the stress. It was almost like a dissociative process where, yeah, I'd almost have those experiences where you know, almost out of body type experiences where, I mean, they speak about it in the literature once I got more into it as like the observer consciousness. Um, but I was also perceiving it. I was perceiving it from two angles. Like this is either a spiritual experience, which can be described in the terminology of Sanskrit, which is why I was attracted to Sanskrit, or it could also be described in the language of Western psychiatry as a negative thing. So I was starting to bridge these two gaps and reading literature on both sides, and um, that's when I started to destabilize a bit because I began to doubt, like I began to doubt my own experience, and yeah, I just went off the rails a bit. Um, Energetically wise, I had a lot of energy. It was my first time feeling a sense of liberation, which was nice, which is still here. Yeah, I feel free. Uh, I would say, like on the outside, probably outside to people for the most part, I looked fine, but on the inside, it was chaotic.
Okay, so you're having this incredible spiritual awakening. You're
Yeah,
back in your school working on your thesis in environmental soil science. Am I getting that correct?
yeah, soil water chemistry. It was hydroponics
And,
experiments.
and you're essentially blowing a Kundalini gasket
Yeah,
in the midst of all that, tethered 2 feet above and behind yourself like a balloon at all
yeah,
points, at all times, trying to reorient to this new version of life,
yeah.
wondering what's the deeper meaning of all this. Is this total BS that I'm in school anyways? What is the deep point of this ludicrous thing? And so where did you go from there? And how was your physical health, by the way? So this is a very deep spiritual experience. I'm curious, how did your physical health play into that and was affected by that, if at all, whether it's sleep or hunger or physical problems or physical healings might have happened?
I would say my physical health suffered because it was so mind focused. Um, and there were moments where, because I had pushed myself so hard with yoga, I could feel like repetition injuries, and that was just more lessons to learn from those experiences. I was eating a ketogenic diet at the time, and I was doing intermittent fasting. The reason I was doing that is because you could be more productive and efficient. You could go to campus and not worry about eating, and then just come back and have dinner later at night, which, um, yeah, so that's another part of the spiritual path is fasting, which in hindsight just fits the narrative.
So,
I would say I wasn't healthy at this time. I was mindful of diet and things, but I didn't have the enough awareness of my body and, you know, how the decisions I was making were having long-term effects on it. I mean, I was starting to learn that through my yoga practice, which just kind of turns you inward, helps you feel when your body's thirsty. Well, drink water. If you're hungry, eat. I mean, I was having times I was so like absorbed in it. I was probably in like the sixth or seventh limb of what Patanjali speaks of in the Yoga Sutras, where I'd just be on the couch, I'd be reading, and all of a sudden I'd be like, and I just end up doing like 2 hours of yoga. I wish I could live that life all the time. Maybe I'll get there eventually. I just got to keep steering in that direction. Um,
so physically,
but there was a long gap between when this happened and when I started this class. There's probably a 2 year period.
okay.
So I was kind of in and out of this state for a couple of years, and I had worked up in the mountains doing physical like farm type labor, and that was hard on the body because I was still mostly just in the mind. At
How
this,
was your sleep all during this time? How was your sleep?
once the Kundalini was activated, it was bad. It was, I'd wake up, yeah, like 4 in the morning, revved and ready to go. In the literature, I mean, it could have been easily just considered mania, like
Was
almost
it
like
difficult to fall asleep?
no, because
Difficult to stay asleep.
I was always pretty well exhausted at the end of the day.
Okay, so your sleep sounded like you were falling asleep easy enough, but more just easy to wake.
Yeah,
Really didn't need a lot of sleep. Your
yeah,
body probably had
getting
lost
enough
weight
sleep.
being on the ketogenic and being really active. Sounds
Yeah,
like some of your major joints might have had issues like pain just from repetition,
yes,
shoulders, hips, whatever, knees, like that. And
absolutely.
then what about, let's come on, so before this program, so that kind of was still the situation, you were working in the field.
Yeah, and we haven't really touched on the emotional
That
aspect.
was
And
my next question, just the mental and emotional
yeah,
body.
well, mental was doubt. I mean, I was absorbed in, it was bliss, it was blissful, but I was also like, there's the thing 2 feet behind me, like laughing at me and observing. And I was like, well, maybe, maybe there's something wrong here. So there was that doubt. But emotionally, I would say that I'm a combat veteran as well. So I spent 14 months in Baghdad, Iraq as a drone operator during the 2007 2008 troop surge when there was a civil war going on between the Sunni and Shia. And, in that time, my unit lost probably like 93 guys. So it was very violent. We got shot at pretty much every day for like the first 6 months. And I had just shut off at that time to survive emotionally and mentally and spiritually. I had just shut off, and I never turned it back on. Like I was just shut off from the time it happened to the time I started having these emotional openings through the Kundalini, where I'd actually start like crying and feeling feelings for the first time ever. But they're so overpowering and intense at that point because they've been bottled up for so long or just stored in, wherever these things get stored. So emotionally, that was not good. And when it started to activate, the emotions were amplified. And this had the benefit of me being able to consciously look at them and analyze them, but I wasn't always in control. So yeah, emotionally, I was a wreck, and I'm still processing, um, but in a healthy way. And I know we're going to get into it, but the course really helped me on the emotional side of things as well.
Well, yeah, and so this is huge. So thank you for sharing so openly and honestly about all of this. This is profound.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you.
like really profound
It felt
experience.
profound, certainly.
Nate, remind me, how old are you? Remind us, how old are you?
I'm 32 years old.
32. So in your 32 years of life, you've had a lot of really intense experiences. Uh, physically, yes, but also on the subtle body,
Right.
the emotional body that we talk about in the program. And so we're coming into, you entered into the program. So what types of things were your highlights of the program? What kinds of things did you feel like you could really dig your teeth into, so to speak, that really served you with your getting your physical health back? And I'm just curious, even what you learned as far as the different ideas around the fasting and things like that, and how that affected you.
Right. So we're getting into the course now.
If you feel.
You cut out for a little bit. You cut out for a couple seconds there.
Yeah.
So getting into the course, I had been fairly active. I was trying to find answers and also try to communicate some of my insights from the other realm, bring those down to like the earth realm. Uh, So I was pretty exhausted. I was working hard. I had started a new career because I knew enough that, if you don't play along with society's rules, that can have bad implications for you. So like, I should probably get a job and find somewhere to live. So I got a job, bought a house, um, but that I wasn't interested in that at all. Um, I was more interested in finding and communicating the truth. So I was working from 7:30. I'd get up at 7, go to work, and then I'd come back home and work on this podcast project till about 11. And I just do that every day. And that was my routine. Diet wasn't very on point. Um, food was an afterthought. So moving into the program, pretty much right away, we started talking about grounding and establishing routines. And these were exactly what I needed to do to get me out of that astral realm, or whatever you want to call it, that spiritual headspace, that expansive state, and bring me back into my body. So one of the first things I learned was Abhyanga, which was just doing oil massages, and that set up a routine where I did it in the evening. Where in the evening I just shut everything off around 8:30, and then I would start this routine. It helped me like notice things in my body. It was actually having to take the moment to stop, check in, and actually take care of the body. And this was paired with getting to bed earlier. So this was the very beginning of healing on the body side after this huge spiritual blowout experience. Is just bringing me back. It's part of the transformation process, I suppose. So that was hugest. That was probably the biggest, I'm gonna say, tether at the beginning. Was a couple of quick tips that you can bring into your life. Can you repeat some other portions of that question?
Yeah, so and I'm curious, before you came into this program, a little backtrack, before you came into the Ayurveda program, you already had completed your college degree, right?
Yes.
So you finished your schooling there, and then did you pick this schooling up kind of right after that then? Was there any space in between that?
There was a space. So I was in graduate school until 2016.
Okay.
Then I spent a year farming.
Okay.
And then I came into town, essentially. And I had done some writing during that time as well.
Okay.
And this whole time I was fairly ethereal, we'll say.
Okay. So there was like how many years between when the experience started, I guess, and when you started class? That's what I'm trying to wonder. Is how many years?
A year and a half.
Only a year and a half from the beginning of your experience.
Yeah, a year and a half to 2 years, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay, so not too long, but long enough.
Yeah, long enough that I knew I needed.
Yeah. One day in that world can be enough for most people, I think.
Right, there's a lot to take on and integrate. Will take a lifetime, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it does. The mind and the spirit, they definitely govern the physical body. So you have that experience of their effect, in a sense, dwindling away your physical body. So, and then it sounds like the first kind of thing that you picked up and gathered from the program and benefited from was the Ayurvedic daily rituals and routines that really helped to, in your words, tether your body and keep you grounded and keep you out of that etheric space in your mind, focused on this realm, the earth realm, the realm of the physical world. Is that right?
Absolutely. And like you said in the course, like you taught, we don't think our way into right living, we live our way into right thinking. So that was a process that was initiated early on in the course, and it happens outside of your intellectual understanding, but you just kind of slowly move in that direction.
And so from there, what were the benefits from that? So did your pain in your joints go away? Did you start putting on weight? Did you start, staying asleep longer, sleeping through the night better? Like, what are some physically?
My sleep improved, certainly. I think just overall aches started going away. Joints I'm still working on, but they've definitely improved drastically. As far as, I think just getting into just knowing enough to stop earlier in the evening and start sleeping earlier, that was probably the biggest game changer for me, because it helps with clarity and things like that, which helps bring you further and further in the direction you're trying to go with greater ease. Well, like you say, that there's when you are in those states, like there's not much of a container to hold you, like you referenced earlier, and I could just kind of slowly over time feel like my body was getting stronger, and in turn that would actually make my spirit stronger, or have it something to contain it.
And what were your
almost counterintuitive?
What were the signs that your body was getting stronger, and then what?
I did start to put on weight. That was something early on that I noticed.
Because how low did you get from what you were used to in your adult body?
I honestly haven't had a scale in years, so I'm not sure.
Maybe 10 pounds, 15
Yeah, probably 10 pounds.
And you put that back on?
Yeah. I did a long hike when I got out of when I got out of the Army. I lost like 30 some pounds during that hike, and I never fully recovered from that. But I think with Ayurveda, I'll be able to get back to my original military weight.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm moving in.
No doubt you'll be able to do that. So great. So you physically started to put on weight. How about the pain in the joints that you were experiencing from the repetitive yoga? Did that get benefited as well?
It has. I'm starting to incorporate also strengthening exercise. I mean, they were just such a state that they had to recoup to the point where I could feel like I could start doing strengthening exercises even. And so I'm to that stage. And yeah, that was another part of the course, was that suddenly started feeling like I was in like good enough shape to start going to the beach and working out there, maybe doing some yoga, doing some push-ups and squats and things like that, some running, which is just another way to strengthen the system and make you more resilient.
Great.
So physically,
How about your sleep, Nate? Has your sleep improved?
My sleep has improved.
In what ways?
I've been doing, I'll do like Triphala and ghee at night. Abhyanga certainly helps relax you and calm you down and kind of create that container. And then, yeah, I sleep through the night, and that wasn't happening.
Sleep through the night now. You don't wake up anymore?
No.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you were getting up at around 4:30. What time does your body wake up now, just at a normal time? 6, 5:30?
I could sleep till 8 if I wanted to, but yeah, usually around 6:30, then I can either roll around or go back to sleep.
That's really significant. I mean, putting your weight back on, getting the pain managed, feeling tethered, that your spirit is feeling tethered to your physical body. And I'm wondering the effects, and I know the program obviously is also the life coaching aspect, where we go into things like relationships and your dharma, your career. How were any of those things impacted also from your experiences?
Right. So when I did have the spiritual experiences, I did have some visionary type states and experiences, and it kind of keyed me in a direction I wanted to move toward, which I was naturally doing, but I didn't necessarily have the tools to make it all happen. So coming into this course, with the life coaching portion of it, he taught us such things as like time blocking, just getting our calendar on point, and also just getting really clear about where we wanted to go, and then creating steps to get there. So one of the things I wanted to do was help veterans. I'm consider myself a writer, and writing has been one of the major avenues for my healing. So I wanted to be able to create a space for fellow combat veterans to come write, and that started with getting nonprofit status so that I could seek funding and assistance on the financial end of things. So during the course, that was something I was able to secure. And for being so ethereal and ungrounded, that felt like a major accomplishment to get that done. And another one of my goals during this time was to start the process of getting one of my books that I wrote, started getting that published. And I was so frazzled and scattered and spread, kind of living out this visionary world that it just didn't seem like there was enough space in the day to get all those things done. But once using like the life coaching tools that we learned, I was able to, like, okay, instead of it being like a big overwhelming thing of just need to get this book out there, it became task oriented. Like, all right, what's the first thing you have to do? You gotta look for agents, or you gotta write your initial letter. What's the book about? So able to break things down into steps like that was helpful, especially when I was in that state. Just gave me like concrete things to hone in on, and setting like SMART goals, definable, measurable type goals. That's been a game changer for me as well. As I already mentioned the time blocking, but that's something that I'd never known about before. But essentially just breaking down your day hour by hour, what you're going to do, what you need to accomplish. That was big for me. And it also taught me that I should probably block out time for more self-care, which was happening already. And it kind of helps you see how you actually spend your time. Once you have that view, you can really start making major shifts in your lifestyle, because you can actually see it for what it is. Like, well, I don't like that. I'd rather it serve me in this way instead. And then you can start moving in that direction. So I think that paired with all you gave a lot of, you consider it like the moon-minded phase of the course. It's a lot of like the visioning, and possibilities were kind of infinite for which direction we could go. Just having those prompts and knowing there's different ways to live, and just the grind, all of that.
Great. So it sounds like time management and ways to create space in your life to do the other things besides even Dharma orientation, bringing in more of the self-care that it sounds like you were really needing to keep yourself tethered, in your words.
Right.
So that's great. So it sounds like, would you say the balance was achieved a bit here in this process?
Yeah, there was a certain point where it felt like I made it through. Where I felt grounded enough that I'm like, man, I think I made it. I think
Wow.
I'm like grounded.
That's amazing, Nate. So you're saying at some point in the program, you don't remember what month or when that was, do you?
It was probably three or 4 months ago. So maybe probably a little over halfway through the program. Where I started to realize, okay, I'm actually stepping into a new version of myself, and now it's starting to manifest.
Yeah, well, and this is an important thing too, because I'm curious, we could almost pinpoint it down to, because this will help the people listening too, like, what was it that really tethered them in, you know, and things really shifted. Because, you know, like we did the group detox, we were focusing on food a lot around that time, I believe, too. Or it might be when we started getting more into the emotions and the relationships and the psychology.
It was definitely that.
Okay.
Yeah. So is the emotions and
Uh-huh.
the relationships. So
Ayurveda and the emotions and Ayurveda and the relationships. Okay.
So the emotions I had been processing, and you know, when you're having such powerful experiences that aren't part of most people's life experiences, I mean, you can read about them in the literature, but it does make you feel isolated. Oh man, I'm different. I'm the black sheep. I don't belong, and that just would, you know, that's a repetitive, self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that it just further isolates you if you like identify with those experiences. So just the intimacy of being able to do this transformative work in a group helps make it real, and helps you kind of share this transformation so that it's not just inside of you, it's real to other people as well, which further reinforces that it's taking place, and people will support you through that process. And then once I had that inner sense of safety, essentially, and confidence, then I could start rebuilding or reestablishing relationships with um, people who I've known for longer. You know, just my family specifically, who I had separated from during this time because they just wouldn't understand, and they'd probably be fearful for my health. So that's been, and just having the confidence to step into what you're becoming. That was a major uh, point where it just kind of clicked, where it's like, okay, this is real, it's happening, this is a decision I'm making, and I feel confident in this path. And you know, you're around a group of people that are supportive and open-minded, and you know, transformations happen just like that. You know, it's powerful stuff when you start to think of how profound that can actually, a shift like that can, you know, alter the course of your life, and obviously shift the path that you're on, and being like, for instance, the Dharma project. I mean, if I hadn't had the support and encouragement, that might have been something I dropped as just being another, like, you know, fantastical vision of mine. But I realized, oh, this is something, you know, with the support and encouragement of a group, um, oh, this is something that's totally attainable. It's pretty straightforward, actually. And just having that insight, and then looking out into your life further and further out, like, okay, what are my goals? What, these are all attainable. These are things that we can get to. And just having that confidence. And like I said, I was experiencing quite a bit of doubt during the whole transformation, that stepping into that confidence of who you are, um, it's powerful. And to be able to have a space for that to take place and be supported and nurtured, it's profound. And it's unfortunate that it's not more common, and I feel grateful that I had the Ayurvedic group, your teachings and your guidance, and just, you know, everyone was showing up, and we're all openly discussing our challenges and where we want to go. And I think just that synergy between the group and just, you know, all the energy is coming into play. And obviously you're coaching us all to become what we are, or, you know, step into our confidence with all of that. That's transformative. It'll just change. It'll just change what you think of yourself, and then that'll affect the way you show up in the world.
So it sounds like a lot of mindset shifts for you, shifting in the limitations of the previous beliefs and things. And then it also is sounding a lot like, as much as the Ayurveda knowledge and the life coaching knowledge and my support, what I was hearing a lot there was like having that container, that community, in a sense, was also another tether.
Right.
It was also like another container, as you worded it, just like supporting the whole process of, why go through life alone, especially when we're going to be stumbling for answers and things, rather than just going right to, oh, this person has this information, I get to do it with this group of people, and everybody's doing it a little differently and they have different needs, but we're really being the container and the inspiration for each other. So is that true? Is a lot to do with the community, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also, so for people that are struggling with the decision, like what would you say to them as far as, oh, I'm not sure, the common thing is, oh, the money's getting in the way, the timing is not good, I'm just curious what your idea is there ever going to be the right time, is there ever going to, those kind of things.
I would say if you're in a position currently and you're not happy with it, and there needs to be a change, and you have an idea, even if it's a vague idea of what needs to, of like what you want it to look like on the other end, having a course like this it's going to help you get there so much sooner and so much quicker, that it's certainly going to be worth it for you. Like looking back on it, you're going to maybe, like if those changes never took place, you just wouldn't know. So it could have like tragic implications if you think of it in that perspective. If you knew you wanted to change and then you never did, like if you had that inkling enough to even like call you about the course, and then like, yeah, I don't know. Taking that first step probably means you should do it.
Maybe we'll just add that as a tagline to the program. It could have dangerous implications if you don't.
Tragic. It'd be tragic.
That's what it was. Tragic.
Yeah.
For tragedy.
I would hate to see where I would be if I hadn't.
Well, and what I heard from you is it's about leaping into that next version of who it is you're becoming, and like that's our tagline, leap into who you're becoming. And it is that, because it really is for the person, whether they know it or not, right? I mean, I think we can both agree, even if they don't know what the heck they're doing, like we had a few people, they really, like, I don't even know what's going on in life, and who am I, and where am I going? It's like, it's kind of irrelevant, it really.
We did a lot of work around that as well, like early on in the course, what are your beliefs? What are your values? Where do you see yourself going? Do you want to have, a wife and kids? What kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of relationships do you want to have? So we touched on all that, all the visioning things. And like I said, that opened up more potentialities in my mind, just having someone even suggest that there were all these other possibilities. And that's powerful in and of itself, because if you're not exposed to things, you don't know they exist. So it's good when someone can stimulate different thought patterns in your mind. So I thought that was also a great part of the course.
Yeah, yoga and Ayurveda can really stimulate some unique thought patterns for the mind. And you're right, we don't know what we don't know, right? Yeah. You have an idea of what you know, you have an idea of what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. That is infinite, right?
It's the blind spot that we're all.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. So, yeah. And it is interesting, where would our lives be had Ayurveda not come into our path, right? Where would our lives be if we didn't get this science? It's like a grace, right? I feel like any of us that find our way to these kinds of programs, whether it's this one or another one, where you get time to do self-reflection and get time to take good, great, we call it exquisite care of yourself, how incredibly blessed we are, right? And you, having been overseas and having had a very different experience from that, I think you of all people really can value that, right? And
yeah. I have almost like a comical image in my mind. If I hadn't found Ayurveda when I did, I'd just be like a shriveled raisin by now. I'd just be withered away. I say that jokingly, but I was going in that direction.
That's great.
The mindset stuff was huge for me as well, because coming out of the military, you know, those are your formative years when you're, you know, I joined when I was 17. I was just a kid. I didn't know anything. Once you get into the military, they kind of indoctrinate you or program your thinking so that you behave and react to situations in a certain way. And getting out of the military, those are the same thought patterns that I would use to get me through life, because I didn't know any better, like we had just previously discussed. And a lot of these thought patterns were not healthy for me, because when you're in the military, sometimes you have to do things that are against your own self-interests and well-being just to accomplish the mission. And in hindsight, I can see myself resorting to those patterns of, you know, self-denial and, you know, just anything for the cause of the mission. But I just apply that to life or school, most specifically. Just, you know, just devote everything I had to accomplish the mission, but there was no fun, there was no joy. And this was one of the things that came out of the awakening and the emotional purging, and one of the things that, you know, we discussed in the course as being a possibility of a direction that you could move towards. Like, this isn't like, life isn't a grind, it's a gift, and we can move from a place where we can experience it every day as a gift and as a joy and as a grace. And sometimes you just have to have that opportunity to step back and see it as such. And it's way more likely to stick if you are taking exquisite care of yourself. So, like you said, it's a grace that, you know, Ayurveda came into my life and gave me the tools to be able to even have the eyes to see life in such a way. So thank you for that as well.
Yes. Yes, it does feel like new eyes, like you're looking through a new lens now at the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like I said, it's daunting at first, but now it's joyful and feels great.
Well, gosh, Nate, this was really incredible to hear all of this transformation for you, and just to get to hear more details of your life story. You know, yeah, it's great. I'm just grateful to play even the tiniest role in your healing or any of the students' healing. So really, truly, it's just wonderful to hear.
Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank you.
Welcome.
Because when I think about it at a deep, profound level, in a way, I owe my life to you, in the sense that I don't know where I would be. I didn't. Yeah, you brought me back. So thank you so much for that. And the tools, all the teachings, I took it to heart. I wasn't always in a place where I could use everything immediately, but things that needed to take place, I was able to get done. And now I'm excited to continue living Ayurvedically. I just ordered a gallon jug of sesame oil, so that means I'll be on to going on. Then I'll be so happy.
That's when you know you've got an Ayurvedic household name, and you've got a gallon of sesame oil or some kind of herbal oil around the house at any given hour. Well,
I still gotta figure out the towel situation. I'm just gonna fix me a little towel. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for popping on and for taking the time to do this testimonial tonight. And do you have any last parting words of wisdom or inspiration or anything for the students before you go?
Yeah, I would say
Potential students.
for anyone listening or anyone interested in Ayurveda or like Hindu philosophy, maybe you have a yoga background, this course offers a comprehensive teaching or transmission of that lineage, and it's a pretty full, it's a full philosophy to take into account all aspects of the human experience. And for anyone who's feels dissatisfied with the Western training, maybe feels like that's limited, or just the Western mindset that many of us grew up with, I feel a course like this can really fill out a lot of aspects of what we now know, like through the Ayurvedic training, we know to be true, but that we just had no knowledge of. So it can illuminate vast swaths of hidden knowledge. And once you have access to that, then the life can feel much richer because you're aware of so many more things. So thank you for formatting the class the way you did. It was very intelligently laid out, and I also feel like you catered many of your teachings specifically to the needs of the course, and or the needs of the students in the course at the specific times, which I thought was very kind of you, and speaks to your character and what you're actually trying to accomplish with the program. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Nate. You're very welcome. Thank you. Great feedback. It's great to hear things from your point of view, the student's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll be sure to keep an eye out for your podcast. And you want to just give a plug here for your podcast?
Yeah, I started the Humboldt Lighthouse podcast during my awakening process to help me find answers and towards some of these mysteries that I was kind of like living in, but trying to wrap my head around at the same time, or bring language to. So I've had conversations with healers of various lineages, priests, religious scholars, and artists, a lot of free thinkers. And it's been a fun and fulfilling ride. And I've been happy and a little bit nervous and vulnerable to share it with others, but it's been a great ride, and I'm excited to continue to share it with others.
Yeah, it's such a gift for our community, and I know you have, like, your community is even beyond this country. So at this point with your podcast, I know you get some input from people all over the planet, it seems. So that's great. You're growing. And what about your nonprofit? Are you ready to start taking donations and things? Is there a link that we can post? I'm sure I'll get that from you, but if you want to just plug it here.
It's called About Face, the Warrior Poet Sanctuary. I really want to bring that spirit out of the warrior class, the softer side, and it's through the Ink people in Eureka. So any donations can be through the Ink people, and I'll provide you a link for that if you plan on posting any links. And you can also just reach out to me through my the HumboldtLighthouse.com website. My contact information is on there as well. So thank you so much.